Hello again, everybody, and welcome inside the VIBELAND Sports Studios. I'm Todd Miller, joined by KP and Casady Fletcher. It is episode 22 of our weekly know-it-all show entitled VIBELAND Sports. Guys, a lot going on. Golf has now completed two majors. The NBA playoffs roll along. Major League Baseball, the good teams are starting to separate themselves from the also-rans. But since we've last talked, how's the week been?
Everything's great on
Somebody
this
has aged. Somebody's had a birthday in this studio.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate the invitation to the celebrations.
Well, you know, I knew you were going to be out of state, so
Oh, boy, was I.
man, I'm just glad that you made it back all right. How was your traveling, Todd?
For the most part, it was good. For the last 2 days, it was not good because we were supposed to come home on Sunday from Sioux City, Iowa, not Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Iowa, through Chicago O'Hare. We get into Chicago O'Hare, find out that they've had a bunch of severe weather there, so they are backed up. They've started canceling flights, one of which happened to be ours, coming to Oklahoma City. So we got to spend an extra night in Chicago, and then decided, well, the best option to get home would be to fly from Chicago O'Hare to Dallas-Fort Worth and drive to Oklahoma City.
Oh, my.
So that's how we got home, but you know what? We're home, we're back. Bison had a good showing, and I just appreciate you guys more. I really do.
And this Oklahoma soil, I'm sure.
That's exactly right.
Coming right back to some severe weather yourself, huh?
We did have some storms yesterday. I think Oklahoma scathed by very, very luckily.
Oof.
I know there's people that don't want to believe that, but if you talk to meteorologists, if you looked at all the models, everything was in place to be one of the worst outbreaks in a long, long time. Unfortunately, it was bad enough, but not maybe to the liking of some for tornadoes. So
Yeah, which is crazy to me. I just want to just real quick.
I agree.
Yeah, just say if they're predicting a lot of tornadoes and it doesn't hit, that's a good thing. I don't know. I guess people are wanting to just see their main streets get just ripped apart by these giant violent storms. But me personally, I would rather everyone be safe and stay in and then not have anything happen than us to act like it's not a big deal and get caught in some EF4.
You know, it's a no-win situation because if you don't talk about it in advance, people get upset that they didn't have enough warning. Mm-hmm. If you hype it the way they did, and I thought did a good job doing so, then you're just too much the other way. If you don't let kids out of school and something happens, then they're mad about that. If you do what they did and allow kids a day off because of the possibility of severe weather and it doesn't come into foray, then everybody's mad. Well, we wasted a day. What is the difference between a spring storm and a winter storm that doesn't materialize? You're out of school. It doesn't matter. I don't want my kid being picked up during rush hour in Oklahoma City when there's storms coming in. So kudos to the meteorologists in this state, the TV weathermen. I know they're not the most popular people, but we are very, very fortunate to have the best in the world at what they do right here, trying to keep us safe. So
Definitely. Best in the world, period.
anyway, speaking of one of the best in the world, KP, your brother is going to stop by for a visit today. Mookie Salaam, what a career he has had and a journey from when he first met you and your family.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for the listeners to hear Mookie's story and for me to go back and hear some of the beginnings of it too. Kind of, you know, it's been since 2007 was when me and Mookie met. So it's been a 12-year relationship and it's been my brother ever since. So it's been a cool story. I'm glad for the listeners to hear it and hear how I got a brother when I was 17.
Speaking of Mookie, he will be our guest coming up in segment number 2. He is currently the head sprint coach at Broken Arrow High School. He is a former University of Oklahoma national champion. He is an Olympian, and he also is a multi-record holder at OU. So great interview coming up. KP actually joins me on this interview this week, so we're looking forward to you hearing that work here shortly. Let's get to our topics. First of all, surprise, surprise, Golden State wins their 5th Western Conference championship. I was a little surprised Portland did not get one game, but I think the Trailblazers were just out of gas. I mean, you think about it, up until about 3 weeks to go in the regular season, people didn't even know where they were going to fall in the playoffs because they were injured. Then they played very well against Oklahoma City. I thought they were lucky to get by Denver because I think Denver's a better team, and then they had absolutely nothing left for Golden State. But to tell you how good Golden State is, no KD, no Boogie Cousins, and they still sweep the Portland Trailblazers 4-0.
And they do it without Andre Iguodala
Yeah,
in the last game too.
yeah.
So, I mean, they're just the Warriors kind of had a few curveballs thrown at them, but they just go on to show that they're the Warriors. And, Todd, I think you said it best. I think the Blazers just ran out of gas because they had an excellent series against the Thunder where they just dominated. The Thunder were talking a lot of trash. The Portland Trailblazers were dealing with a lot of outside noise. They stepped up to the challenge and said, we're here, we're the real deal. Then they go in and fight a grueling 7-game series against Denver, who was a great matchup for them, win on the road in Game 7. Then you just go meet the Golden State Warriors. But hey, you get news before the series. Oh, Kevin Durant's probably not going to play. That's going to be great news for us, Portland Trailblazers. And then you still go get swept in 4 games because the Golden State Warriors are that good. They're that for real. And it's kind of shocking to see and a little bit humbling for the rest of the NBA.
But here's what I've said all along. I said this last week. You can go back and listen to the previous episodes, and I'm not the only one that has said it. The Golden State Warriors are still the best team of the NBA without Kevin Durant. Now, are they better without Kevin Durant? No, because he's the best player in the world. Their offense runs better, Casady, more efficiently without Kevin Durant, who is a ball stopper.
That's right.
Kevin Durant was needed by the Golden State Warriors to eliminate their biggest threat in the Western Conference. Mission accomplished. Now they move on 4-0 over Portland without KD.
Oh, absolutely. And you look, when you take Kevin Durant off that team, it's about 20 shots and 30 to 35 points just get redistributed among the stars and role players that are still out there on the court for Golden State, which makes them equally as difficult to guard because the ball moves so well. They're finding every weakness that they possibly can. That team basketball that they play, we know it works. We saw them win 73 games just a couple of years ago with basically the same cast that they have without Kevin Durant right now. And so that brand of basketball is really what I think of as like the core of the Warriors. But, man, if Kevin Durant's able to come back for the finals, my goodness, that team is just going to – they're going to be almost impossible to beat.
He's going to be well-rested.
Absolutely. And, guys, I think we talked about it a little bit on this podcast, too, talking about Steph Curry and him kind of needing to step it up. And if you guys remember, think about this. Ever since Kevin Durant's come to the Warriors, it was just 3 years ago where Steph Curry was the unanimous MVP of the league. He was hands down the best player in the NBA, and like you said, Todd, I don't even think he's the best player on his team, but in this situation, he's had to be, and he's stepped up big time, and he is the Steph Curry that we all remember, and as Thunder fans, the guy that just hits those back-breaking killer threes that every coach on planet Earth would say, that's a terrible shot, don't take that, and he just hits the bottom of the nylon, doesn't even touch the rim. It's disgusting, but man, he's good.
I know that people call me a hater, and I think there's times when I step back and evaluate myself, that's probably a good term. I think a lot of us as sports fans are haters, whether we want to admit it or not. But I'm not into dynasties unless it's my team. And the Golden State Warriors are not my team. Do you feel like that 5 consecutive trips to the finals by one team, this isn't the Bill Russell Celtics or the Lakers, do you think this is good for the NBA in today's world?
I say no, because we're a society of I want it now. I want entertainment now. I want something new. I want the newest thing, especially I think in today's society with the younger generation. So seeing the Warriors 5 years in a row, no, it's getting old. It's getting boring, and it's this super team they just go and sweep without their best player. Like, that's not fun. I want to go see a 7 games knockout grind out. Somebody just got the last shot. Something like that's a series I want to talk about. I'm not a big fan of it, but in basketball, that's kind of been the way it's been. I mean, think about the dynasties, the teams that were dominating. I mean, the Warriors, the LeBron, whatever team LeBron's on, the San Antonio Spurs, Mavericks had a good. I mean, they only won one championship, but had a good playoff deep runs years and years ago. So I'm going back to the Pistons in the East in the early 2000s. I mean, that's kind of the way basketball is. But I am ready for the next chapter to start. I'm ready for the page to turn and see what the next generation of basketball is bringing.
Yeah, because we really haven't had this kind of sustained dominance. I mean, I don't even know back to when. I guess,
the Bulls.
Since the Bulls,
Yeah.
right. And you had
5th straight conference. Was it 50 years? It was the early Lakers or Celtics. That was the last team to go 5 straight NBA finals.
It was the Celtics.
It was the Celtics. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I saw that stat. But it's been, I think, 50 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, if Michael Jordan wouldn't have taken time off, I think that they probably would have had 8 straight finals that they went to there in the mid-'90s or through the whole 90s, I guess. But, look, I don't enjoy this. It's not anything new. It's just we rehash the same storylines over and over. They try to make it seem so difficult for the Warriors. They talk about all these hardships they're facing and everything. And yes, you're losing Kevin Durant, and yes, you lose Boogie Cousins. But look what was already on that team, and look what they had already accomplished by themselves. It's not like they've got just a bunch of guys that are suiting up behind those two stars.
That parity between the best team 1 and 2 in the West was so close. I mean, it went to 6 games with Thunder and the Warriors. 7. Okay, it was 7. So they went 7 games. Yeah, because we were up 3-1 and they came back and won. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. Block that out. Sorry. So the parity between 1 and 2 was so close. And then, like Todd said, I'm going to use your verbiage. They neuter the Thunder by taking KD away, and that parity between 1 and 2 becomes so distant. And there has to be a new 2, and that 1 just got even unbelievably stronger. It's just like you said, Cassie. I'm getting sick of it. I'm done. I'm ready for the next chapter.
I have a worst case scenario for you, though. If you just want to, have this a bit of nightmare fuel, what if Giannis and the Bucks are able to close out Toronto, go and beat the Warriors, and that means that whole team has quote-unquote unfinished business, and so now they've got to stick around together, and they all sign one-year deals again, and we've got this juggernaut for year 6.
I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Kevin Durant is as good as gone. I think he is done with Golden State. He won his championships. I think he's ready to go on and be the man somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought, Cassidy.
I don't think it's impossible to say what happened. I just don't think it will, because I think Kevin Durant is done in Golden State.
I will also say I never in 1,000 years thought that the Thunder would go blow a 3-1 lead and then watch the Warriors blow one and then watch Kevin Durant go to that team.
Well, that's why we don't talk about the 3-1 lead blown in that playoffs, because it wasn't the worst one blown. The Warriors went and did it in the finals with a 73.
Way worse.
Yeah, and with winning 73 games that season. But what I was going to say was I want to see the Bucks beat the Warriors because I want to see that there's a formula out there to do it. I'm just afraid that formula includes an element that's not available for the rest of the NBA, and that element is the Greek freak element, which I don't believe is available to the rest of these NBA scientists.
Speaking of the Eastern Conference Finals, that series is 2-1 as we record. I say at most it's a 6-game series, and I still think Milwaukee could close them out in 4 or 5. We're speaking of the Toronto Raptors. But that has to do with this week's VIBELAND Sports Fan Poll question of the week. Easy. Who is the most important player to their team? Is it A, Giannis for the Bucks, or is it B, Kawhi for the Raptors? Log on at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter, cast your vote, and we will read the results of this week's poll on next week's VIBELAND Sports episode 23. Big news this week. It just won't go away. The Los Angeles Lakers, Magic Johnson coming out now saying why he is finished in Los Angeles. What's you guys' take on that?
I thought it was really, really interesting to watch that interview with him on First Take. I mean, you hear these things through the media and the story, the things that he said, but for him, the president of basketball, Magic Johnson, the face of the Lakers, to go on TV and say, I was backstabbed by the general manager, by my coworker. I got out of there basically because it's a mess and it wasn't running how I wanted to. So instead of trying to stay and fix it, I got out. Mr. Laker himself basically admits that this is a sinking ship, and he jumped off and was not the captain going down with the ship. He jumped off to save face. So it just is alarming to me to see this Lakers storied franchise. And yeah, you can hear that I'm saying this with a little smile in the corner of my mouth. It's awesome kind of to see this franchise just go down so quick, and alarming that Magic Johnson was the one that kind of put the final blow on it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, you say he jumped ship. I'm going to use a different vehicle metaphor. I feel like he was throwing people under the bus as fast as he possibly could on his way out the door. For him to come out in the media and say some of the stuff that he did, for him to resign to the media before he ever actually talked to anyone in the Lakers organization.
Inside the Staples Center before the season was over.
Right. So going all the way back to that, I just feel like he's wanted to have the spotlight on himself and is trying everything he can to say, well, this wasn't my fault that we got LeBron and couldn't make the playoffs. This was everyone else but me, the president of basketball operations, by the way. Everyone else but me, and it just felt like he was trying to point the finger as many ways as possible.
Okay.
I'm ready for this.
Yeah. Here's the opinion you want to hear.
This is going to be my yes, but. I'm going to start off by saying Magic Johnson is one of the 5 greatest players in the history of the NBA. And if you are an NBA fan today, you should feel a very deep sense of gratitude to Magic and to Larry Bird for saving what was a floundering league back in the 80s. Okay, I've said that. But I am not a Magic Johnson fan. I have never been a Magic Johnson fan. Do I respect him for his greatness as a player? You bet. Do I respect Magic Johnson for his greatness as a business person? You better believe I do. But Magic Johnson, to me, is not what everybody thinks Magic Johnson is. Magic Johnson is one of these sparkly-eyed, big grin guys. Everybody loves Magic. Everybody thinks Magic Johnson is it and all. I have never bought into it. I don't believe in his personal life. And I don't believe that he was ever really serious about being the president of basketball operations for the Los Angeles Lakers. Nor do I believe that Magic Johnson was deserving of such a title. He's one of the greatest Lakers ever. He loves the Buss family. He and Jerry Buss were like father and son. So therefore, he was going to get the opportunity for a job that he was not deserved of, I don't think. He has been a horrible, horrible NBA coach. And as far as I'm concerned, this mess that is in Los Angeles right now lays solely at the doorstep of Magic Johnson. But Magic Johnson is one of these guys. His ego is so damn big. He wants the credit when everything goes good. And the minute it doesn't, why, it's not me. Who do you think had the say in drafting some of these players in Los Angeles? It sure as hell wasn't Jeannie Buss. It was Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is the reason that Lonzo Ball is the Los Angeles Laker. He wanted Lonzo Ball, who I think is going to be a fine pro. But there were much better options at number 2 than Lonzo Ball. So now he goes on the day, guys, the very same day the Lakers introduce Frank Vogel as the next coach, he goes on the national TV and throws Pelinka under the bus, he throws the Lakers organization under the bus, and he throws basically his sister, Jeannie Buss, under the bus. Because he doesn't want to stand up and take an ounce of credit for the joke that one of the most iconic sports franchises in any professional sports has become. And for him to say that Rob Pelinka backstabbed him because Rob Pelinka had the guts, now maybe he didn't say it to Magic's face, to have the guts to say that he backstabbed him because he told people the obvious of what was going on, that Magic Johnson was not there every day. Magic Johnson was not bought into this thing. And you know what? He wants to blame Rob Pelinka for saying that. Magic Johnson has said, I wasn't all bought in. Rob Pelinka is another guy that is in a position that he should not be with the Los Angeles Lakers. Nobody likes him in the NBA. Nobody wants to deal with him. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm not saying that Magic should not have had problems with Rob Pelinka. He's never been a GM before.
He's been a sports agent.
That's exactly right.
If you guys don't know the history of Rob Pelinka, some of our listeners probably don't. The reason the Lakers know him, how did they meet him, Todd? It's because he was Kobe Bryant's agent. That's where Rob Pelinka came from. He's been a sports agent. He's been James Harden. He's represented Harden. He's represented Dion Waiters. He's represented Kevin Durant. And in 2016, he got out of the sports agent business, became the GM of the Los Angeles Lakers.
Do you know what nepotism does in life? It rarely works. And it's nepotism when you want to put people that are unqualified for jobs in high-end positions. And that's what happens with the Lakers because Magic was an all-time great. It's happened because Rob Pelinka was a player's agent. People in the NBA don't want to deal with Rob Pelinka. But you know what? Magic Johnson was not in the office every day like a president of basketball operations should be.
Yeah.
Here's an example. He had a meeting with Luke. He wanted to fire Luke. He berates Luke, and then he leaves and isn't around again for an extended period of time. Now, who does that, and how does that lend credibility to you as a leader?
It doesn't.
Magic Johnson loved to act like he was the part of getting LeBron James to Los Angeles.
Tell everybody in earshot about it.
I'm sure he was a small part But let's be honest here. LeBron James didn't go to the Lakers just for basketball. If he did, if he was going for basketball, he would have gone somewhere else because that team is not ready to win a championship. And LeBron is about playing for championships. He went there more because it's a business opportunity and because of Hollywood. And if Magic Johnson thinks he had a big hand in getting him there, well, good for you. But you know what? He'll take credit for that. But he won't take credit for the pile of trash that the Lakers franchise has become.
For the bad draft picks, for the bad non-re-signings. I mean, he said that in that First Take interview. They straight up called him out. I like that. They said, well, you're talking about spreading the floor. You let Brooke Lopez, who's killing the finals right now as a stretch center, you let him walk for $3 million, dude.
Yeah.
He's shooting four threes in the fourth quarter in the NBA playoffs. You think he might have helped LeBron stretch the floor a little bit this year?
He gets rid of D'Angelo Russell for Swaggy P. And look at what D'Angelo Russell was doing with the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, he said the reason he got rid of D'Angelo Russell because the Swaggy P incident. It was he basically told on Swaggy P's cheating on his girlfriend, and that messed up team chemistry. So that's why they shipped him out. He was just an immature little kid.
And then yesterday, he talks and he addresses the New Orleans Pelicans' possible trade with Anthony Davis. You know who he blamed it on? Dell Demps.
Yep,
Of course.
He said, I told Dell Demps, let's keep this between us. I don't want anybody to know what we're going to offer you. But he says Dell Demps was the one that went to the media.
And by the way, that was a genius move by Dell Demps because he showed the Lakers' hand. He still told the rest of the NBA, this is what we're at, and this is what we're saying no to for Anthony Davis. So bring it. So that was a genius business move on the Pelicans' part.
When things don't go right, it's never Magic's problem. It's never his blame. It isn't his blame the franchise is where it's at, despite the fact he has been the man. Okay, maybe he didn't have the power he thought he was going to have at the end to get rid of Luke Walton. Maybe he didn't. But do you know that just before he resigned, he had dinner with Jeannie Buss. And she said, is there anyone in this franchise that you have a problem with? Nope. My problem with this job, he says, is that it doesn't allow me to be Magic Johnson.
Wow.
That was the answer he gave to his friend and his boss. He had a chance right then to say, Rob Pelinka and I do not work together. But when it was convenient for him to go on and talk to his buddy, Stephen A. Smith, who lobbed softball after softball and gave him an open microphone for as long as he wanted to throw people one right after underneath the bus, he did it. That, folks, is what Magic Johnson is. Is he a great player? You bet he is. Is he a great business person? You bet he is. Does he do good things for Los Angeles? I have no doubt that he does. But he is not a president, and he's not a basketball coach. And he's willing to take all the praise when they can heap it on him, but he's the first to run from problems. And I'm not going to say he's totally wrong in saying Dell Demps was the one that broke the story. That probably didn't go down. I mean, that may be the way it went down. But do you have to get on national television and tell that too? And you do it the very same day that the franchise you so much love, is introducing a new coach, which you wanted to have. You wanted a new coach. And you blame the fact on that you couldn't fire Luke Walton as the ultimate straw that broke the camel's back.
Get out of here with that.
It's lame. It's lame, and that's why the Los Angeles Lakers are destined for problems.
And by the way, I think that was a bad move firing Luke Walton. I think they threw in the towel too quick on him. People are quick to forget he was the coach on the Warriors staff that was
He's not LeBron's guy.
He's not LeBron's guy. You're right about that. But he was the coach that led the Warriors to that 73-win season. People forget Steve Kerr was out for a lot of that. So that was Luke Walton managing that huddle, managing that one of the best teams ever to step on the court. So I think he's got the capabilities, but you're right, Todd. There was a big factor there. He's not a LeBron guy, so you get that guy out as quick as you can. And
there
replace him.
is a massive, massive leadership void within the Los Angeles Lakers organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that started with Magic Johnson. So if you want to blame everybody else, that's fine. I'm sure there's plenty of blame to go around. He's not the only one. He hadn't been there forever. But come on. Step up and take the blame, the fall for one thing in your life that went wrong, besides the fact that his emotional AIDS or HIV press conference, which is very unfortunate. But I'm just telling you, he is not the guy that everybody thinks he is. Do I know him? Obviously, I don't know him. But I've never bought into the smile and the sparkly eyes and think he's a perfect guy, because he's not. Do I think he's probably a decent guy? Yeah, I do. But I do not worship at the altar of Magic Johnson, nor do I think that everybody else around him but him is the reason that this franchise is where it's at. I'm done.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Lakers fans will love that one.
I'm not a Lakers fan, and I have a lot of Lakers friends that are Lakers fans. They know I don't like
I think the true fans are getting about as frustrated as you are, because this is not what their franchise is about.
And look, the NBA, I don't care if the Lakers ever win again. It's no different than the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys or the Green Bay Packers or the Boston Bruins or the Montreal Canadiens. It is no different than any of those legendary franchises. The NBA is stronger and better when Boston and the Lakers are good. So whether I want them to be good or not, just like the Big 12 is better when the University of Texas is stronger, whether anybody wants to admit that, when you have your brands, you have to have those brands strong.
You're right.
And they have not been. And I think Magic is a big problem for that. But I think Jenny Buss is a problem too. I think that franchise needs to be sold. And they need to get an owner in there. Her father, Jerry, was the genius behind the Los Angeles Lakers. It wasn't her brother, Jim, and it certainly hasn't been her.
No.
So, anyway, okay, let's talk about PGA golf. How about the PGA Championship? Brooks Koepka, 4th major in the last 8, and he nearly squandered a 7-stroke lead on Sunday. I watched probably the last hour of it at the airport in Chicago, and I can tell you that what bits and pieces I followed on social media for most of the weekend, it was a pretty dramatic-free weekend for a major. But the last 45 minutes to an hour, I don't know what you thought, Casady, made up for a lot, with Dustin Johnson maybe losing another opportunity and Brooks Koepka nearly squandering an opportunity.
Yeah, look, I think when Brooks showed up on Sunday and had that 7-stroke lead, I think that he just put it on autopilot. I think in the back of his mind, he thought, I just won another major. All I got to do is just get through the round. Nobody's catching me in 7 strokes at Bethpage on Sunday. It's not going to happen. Well, then he goes out and starts, kind of pitching the ball all around the course and didn't really necessarily finish strong. Dustin Johnson came on like a freight train, and there for a little bit, it was very close, where I thought there's no way that we're about to watch this happen. I was following mostly on social media, like you're saying, Todd, and because I was one of those people, like I think Brooks thought. There was no drama. I had really no reason to watch. I thought he's got 7-stroke lead. It'd be neat if somebody gets within 4 of him. I didn't even think that was going to happen the way he had been playing. The last bit of that tournament and the way that it ended, it definitely got a little bit more exciting. But overall, I just felt like Brooks grabbed this tournament by the throat on Thursday and really never let go until the very end. It was kind of anticlimactic, but it was also a great performance if you're a Brooks Koepka fan.
Yeah, it was awesome to see that first round go out there and set a course record, just dominate that way. And I'm with you, Casady, that he just kind of got complacent and got bored. I know it for a fact, as a matter of fact. I just heard a really interesting interview with him this past week, right before the PGA Championship, and he admits, he said, he goes, golf is kind of boring. He goes, I get bored out there. He goes, I'm real adrenaline's real pumping, holes 1 through 4. Then he goes, then about 5 through 12 come through, and he goes, I just get bored, and you could go and ask me what I was thinking on this shot, and I can't tell you because I forget because it's just so boring out there. He goes, then by the time 12 rolls around, I'm like, oh, this thing's about to be over. Then I kind of wake back up and kick it back into gear. But in this podcast I was listening to with them, they go, listen, golf is starting to get boring. Like, what would you change? And he immediately said, less holes. He goes, I'd make it, 13, 14, maybe 15 holes. He goes, it's no fun to be out there for 5.5 hours. He's like, I get bored. you don't get to focus, and he goes, I just get bored and start thinking about stuff. And they kind of asked him, like, what's your approach to golf? They mentioned to him, they said, Tiger, all these guys have reconstructed their swings over the years. Like, what do you do? And he's like, I'd never reconstruct my swing. They go, well, what do you think about when you go up there? And he goes, my thoughts are hit it and go. He goes, I stand up there, I hit the ball, and I go find my ball, and I go and hit it again, and I go. I try to finish this round as fast as I can and get out of there and get on to the after stuff. So, like I said, I promise you, he was bored out there at that 7-stroke lead, and he admitted in this interview the week before that he gets bored on a golf course. So it happened, and we saw it happen.
Yeah, he just started. I think his concentration slipped, and some of those shots that he had been hitting perfectly for 3 straight days, all of a sudden now he's spraying the ball all over the place, and just couldn't seem to really finish the holes the same way that he had been. And man, it's crazy to me to think that you can have a lead like that and get bored on the course. But that's just me coming from it as an outside perspective. Heck, he had already won the PGA last year.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was a big deal for him to even win the tournament. But you're telling me you put that many millions of dollars on the line for me, I'm probably going to bear down a little bit.
Absolutely.
But that's probably what makes him such a good player at the same time, is that he's not thinking about any of that. He's just hitting this shot and going to the next shot and to the next one, and a short-term memory, forget what you did, look at the next thing.
And that's what he said in the interview. You mentioned that he goes, they asked him, they go, do you ever think about that when you hit a bad shot, like how much money it cost you? And he's like, well, no, I never thought about it like that. But now that you put it that way, like, yeah. He's like, he goes, yeah, that time I found the water in the Masters a few weeks ago, that was probably a couple $1 million, don't you think? And they're like, yeah, it probably was. And he was like, oh, never really thought about it that way. That is kind of like that. So it just goes to show that, to me, I listening to that interview, I became a big Brooks Koepka fan because it's just this regular guy.
I like him because it's me against the world.
Right.
Nobody believes in Brooks Koepka but Brooks Koepka.
And it's just, he's a regular guy that happens to be an excellent golfer that just, he's like, he goes, you're either good at golf or you're not. And I figured out I was good at it, so I just keep playing it, and it's fun when it's fun, but it gets boring out there. And so he's just a regular guy that's awesome at this sport.
Don't kid yourself. They are playing for money, but that's not the reason those players, especially in the upper stratosphere of the PGA Tour, are playing. They're playing for championships. They're playing for records. And so I don't really think Koepka probably did think a whole lot about money down the stretch. But, yeah, it was kind of bizarre what I watched to just see him play pretty loose. Dustin Johnson. I don't know what to make of Dustin Johnson. He's so talented, guys, but he bogeys 16, he bogeys 17. Those weren't as major as some of the final blunders he's had in previous majors, like a 3-putt on the final green at Chambers Bay in 2015 that allowed Jordan Spieth to win the U.S. Open, nor the final round implosion at Pebble Beach in 2010 that cost him a chance at the U.S. Open, or a wayward iron that he hit I think it was in 2011 or 2012 at Royal St. George that cost him the Open Championship. So it wasn't to that level, but he had a chance to really make things tight on Koepka coming down to the 18th hole, and he just squandered it. I mean, it was a 3-shot lead going to the 18th because of those back-to-back bogeys.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that is just insanely talented. But look, a lot of times it's like one round that gets him. But when he plays even at the top of his game, there's always that one stroke or that one hole that seems to get him. He just can't seem to put 72 holes together at the very peak of his game during a major, at least consistently. And that's difficult for everyone to do. I mean, if it wasn't, then heck, we would have won majors right now if it wasn't a difficult thing to go out and win a tournament like that. But he's one of the top players in the world, and he has got to figure out, I think it's got to be a mental thing with him now. We've seen he has one of the best swings on tour. He can hit it about as far as anyone in golf, and his short game is pretty solid, but there's something in his mental game that always seems to just get him to just trip him up, and it always seems to be late in rounds where it's more magnified. And I sure hope that he figures out a way to smooth those out, because he's a guy that I think could win 5 or 10 majors over the course of his career, but he's just got to get out of his own way.
We said that it was kind of a dramaless event. What little I did get to watch, it just was a weird feeling. The PGA in May. I mean, that's always been Glory's last chance. It's always been played in the sweltering heat of August somewhere.
Yeah.
And here's the second major of the year, the PGA Championship. Just felt weird, didn't it?
Yeah, they never had a major in May, and so it almost felt like it was like out of sorts or something. I mean, I don't know. It felt different, definitely, and it almost didn't feel like the PGA. It felt more, I don't know, like the U.S. Open type feel.
No,
I guess.
I agree with that.
Strange.
Because it's the time of the year, the New York. Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, coming up next, great guest. KP joins me as well. We'll sit down and talk to his brother, Mookie Salaam, the head sprint coach at Broken Arrow High School, former OU national champion and a multi-record holder for the Sooners as well. That is coming up next as we continue with episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly production of VIBELAND Media.
Hi, we are VIBELAND. We are a creative network fostering and cultivating growth amongst a community of artists and innovators.
Here at HQ, we inspire young entrepreneurs to pursue their ideas and fulfill their highest ambitions. From producing albums to shooting multimedia content to our involvement with various charitable organizations within our local community, we seek to empower and spread knowledge through open source innovation.
We here at VIBELAND look forward to the future and hope you will join us on this exciting journey. Create, innovate, educate. VIBELAND.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports. A special guest today as we welcome in the head sprint coach from Broken Arrow High School, a former University of Oklahoma national champion and multi-record holder with the Sooners, Mookie Salaam. How are you, Mookie?
Good. How you guys doing today?
We're doing good. What are you up to these days?
I'm just being a special education teacher and down there in Broken Arrow, coaching the men's and women's track team.
We're going to get to that a little bit later on because what a turnaround season for BA track and field this past season. But I want to delve into your past just a little bit. First of all, I'm sitting next to this guy that claims he's your brother. He's ugly as heck. He looks like he's got no athletic ability. Tell us the story how you and KP and his family all were able to get together.
So me and my family ended up moving out there in the fall of 2007 to Edmond, Oklahoma from Las Vegas. And me and Kelby actually did summer pride, both played football with each other and both played wide receiver. One day I was walking to summer pride and Kelby was driving. He stopped over and asked if I needed a ride. I said, yeah, I hopped in the car and we went to practice. That same day, my mom ended up calling me and telling me that I couldn't come home that night because DHS was called on us and my brothers and sisters had just got taken and they were looking for me, but since I was at football practice, they didn't come and grab me from football practice. So Kelby was supposed to go have lunch with his mom at McDonald's that same day, so he was like, I could ride with him. And the whole time, Kelby's not knowing what's going on. I was just quiet in the car riding, and he looks back in the back seat and goes, Luke, what's up, man? You're quiet. And I'm not a quiet guy, so it threw them for a loop. And then when I told him what happened, he was like, well, you could talk to my mom when we get to McDonald's, and you can stay with us for the night. So a night ended up turning into a week ended up turning into a month. And then my mom ended up calling me and telling me that I had to turn myself in because I was reported a runaway and that she was going to get arrested if I didn't go down to Oklahoma City to DHS office. So me and Lisa ended up getting in the car and driving down there to Oklahoma City. And then and there, that's when they pretty much took me to a bathroom and strip searched me to see if I had bruises and scars on my body, which I did, but most of them was came from football, getting tackled, getting scratches here and there. I ended up going down to the bottom of the office, and that's where I met my sister and my brothers, and they were all crying and worried, and they know what was going on. And so Lisa was upstairs meeting with them, and they ended up telling her that they were going to take me out of Edmond North. I was going to have to be homeschooled and everything. I wasn't going to be able to play football anymore. And 3 days prior to that, I had just got named one of the football team captains. And so them being the athletic family that they are, she didn't want that to happen. So she told them that they were going to pretty much fight to take custody over me, and the rest was history.
Mookie Salaam is our guest here on episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports. KP is here with me. KP, that had to be trying times for Mookie, and boy, it had to be a blessing for you and your family.
Absolutely. I mean, I always wanted a brother, and I think my sister wanted another brother, so it worked out that we got one, and we kind of got to pick one. I mean, he definitely fell into our laps, but it worked out, and I mean, it's just a situation that you'd like to. I was just really proud to be a part of that family that, we didn't think twice about it. I think my mom, the way she tells the story is when they told Mookie, hey, we're going to take you out of high school and move you to another high school. Mookie, that would have been if you would have left North, that would have been your fourth high school in 4 years, correct?
Edmond North was my fourth high school.
Okay, so it would have been your fifth high school in 4 years. And my mom just looked him in the eye and said, no, that's not happening. Let us know what we need to do to be his family. Mookie, come with us. We're your family now. And that's kind of how it went. And it was just awesome to see Mookie, succeed. And we didn't know he was the stud athlete. We just saw a kid that was in need. And it's funny because, people ask us about the story. This was all going on around the same time the movie The Blind Side came out. And we would always tell people, long story short, it's like The Blind Side, except as my mom would say, she's not as pretty as Sandra Bullock. We didn't have nearly as much money as the Tuohys. And I don't know if Mookie's story was sad, don't get me wrong, but the scene in the movie where the kids never had a bed before, Mookie's had beds before. His story wasn't super. I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't super tragic either. So it was like The Blind Side, but not so extreme.
Mookie, you were a captain at Edmond North. Obviously, you succeeded very well in the gridiron. You had a chance or had a football scholarship to Northeastern State in Tahlequah. Have you ever reached to the point where you really do miss football? I mean, obviously, track took you to greater heights.
Yeah, I do miss football, and that's one of the reasons why I think I am coaching mid-grade football down here in VA right now. Just to be around the sport and just to, give the knowledge that I do have of the sport to the young kids and get them before they start to get stuck in their ways of making those bad habits. The thing about the NSU one, I signed that national attempt. I was actually getting looked at for Nebraska, and that's why we say our story is kind of similar to the Tuohys, the Blind Side, because, if you know the Petersons, you know that they're huge Cornhusker fans. So when me and my dad, when Kevin Peterson, Kelby's dad, we went down there to meet Bo Pelini when he first got back there, and they were just shocked and awe, and they wanted me to go to Nebraska, but I just couldn't see myself being a Cornhusker. So I do miss football, so that's why I coach 8th grade football right now.
At what age did you know, despite the fact you had a foster family and you were in and out of different high schools, did you ultimately know that track was going to be the avenue that was going to take you the furthest?
No, I didn't. Honestly, the reason why I did get in track, because when I did sign that NSU letter of intent, it was just to stay in shape and stay out of trouble. That way I was busy during the summer and being able to, make the all-star strike team, which is they would take us down to the Great Southwest in New Mexico. I actually did that, and then when my name started getting spread around the country, just through track, it was an eye-opener. And then I later found out that my real dad, who passed away when I was 6, ended up ran track at Grambling State University. So it was another way of me feeling closer to my dad.
Well, that's what's really interesting about Mookie's story too is like he said, and he got run out for Edmond North track to go just to stay in shape for college football. Well, then Mookie runs races and is doing the long jump, and it took Mookie a while to not get first place. I mean, he was getting first left and right, and my dad kind of starts looking into it and going, this is unusual to not get second this many times. And then he starts looking up his times, and he's not the fastest kid in Oklahoma. He's the fastest kid in Texas and Florida and all these states that produce fast athletes. So then Mookie, when he got the All-Star invite and started winning at the All-Star meet, then he got a lot of attention from, OU and big schools. So that's track was kind of just to stay in shape. It ended up turning out to be plan A for Mookie.
Mookie, have you ever lost a race at actually before college?
I did at the state meet. I ended up.
How did you handle that?
It was one of those where I knew I wasn't really healthy. I had tweaked my hamstring doing the long jump that day before, and I just went out there and just tried to give my best off for the team, because at that time we was rooting for a state title, and I just went out there to compete and left it all on the track.
Mookie Salaam is our guest, former national champion at the University of Oklahoma. He holds several records for the Sooner track program. He is our guest at episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports. Out of high school, you go to Norman, as I just alluded to, and tell us about your college career in a nutshell, because, I mean, you were very, very well decorated as a Sooner thin clad down there in Norman.
At first, I didn't really know how good I was. I just knew I was good in high school, but at the college level, everybody was good. Everybody was that state champion or that state runner-up. And it wasn't until my junior season when I actually got my friend coach, Matt Kane, came from a junior college, Barton Community College out there in Kansas. And he really set me down, and he said, look, man, you're really talented in the sport, but you're going to have to take this serious. And, you know, all the nonsense that you do outside of the track, like with your buddies, hanging out late nights, and you have to gut that down and be focused. And once I did that, the sky was the limit. I mean, I went from running 10.3 to PRing, running 9.97, breaking the school record, running 6.54, and breaking DeBarton Blanton's indoor record in the 60s. He ran 6.57, and it just came back for the outdoor nationals. When I ran that 9.97, my coach came to me and was like, hey, Adidas is and looking at you. Funny story is, I know you want to come back for your senior year, but I'm actually taking the sprint coaching job down there in the University of Alabama. So he wanted to be faithful and loyal to him. I told him that I would go ahead and follow him down there, and I thought I was going to be able to get a full release from Oklahoma. But the head coach at the time knew he was losing a big asset to his track program and denied my release. So I just went ahead and signed that shoe contract with Adidas.
Do you look back and say, I wonder how good, or not how good, how much better I could have been if I would have fully committed? It was almost like you said until your junior year when the coach pulled you aside and said, look, you're really talented, but you got to straighten up. And then right after that, you signed with Adidas and turned pro. I mean, do you look back maybe your younger years and said, maybe I should have dedicated a little bit more or taken a little bit more serious the sport?
I do once in a while, but I'm a strong believer in Kelby deal to tell you this. I always say everything happens for a reason. And it was just one of those points I feel like I went through everything I went through because the position that I'm in right now, and I'm able to help kids get to college. I have 5 kids right now that never thought about going to college. That's all signing national letter of intent tomorrow. 3 of them will be for a JUCO, and then one of them, she's going to either go to OU or Pitt State. So I think it's a big blessing. I think everything really does truly happen for a reason.
I think a lot of people, Mookie, are familiar with what a professional athlete's life is, or they think they are in terms of the big 4, hockey, basketball, baseball, football. What is a professional trackster's life like? I mean, it's a lot of endorsements and a lot of running races, is it not, around not only the country, but the globe?
Yes, it's definitely that. A lot of training. Dedication is one of those where we like to say in the world of sports, slow feet don't eat, which meaning if you're not running fast enough, you're not getting into those big major meets, which is going to help you give you that prize money to keep you going. Because necessarily at that age, at that point in the time, you don't live off your contract money. So that's when the prize money and all that stuff come into play.
Do you feel like during your time, you could have been maybe recognized as one of the best in the world had there not been a guy by the name of Usain Bolt?
I do believe so. It was just one of those deals where, you know, he's a one-in-a-lifetime athlete, and it happened to be around the time I came out of college and was running. My freshman year at OU, we were watching the 08 Olympics, and that's when he had just ran 1919 in the 200 and then 958. I was looking like, man, I might need to move up to the 400, 800, something. So it's just one of those deals where, I mean, it was awesome to not only watch him race, but to also line it up with him and actually come out the blocks and race him.
That's my next 2-part question. One, what is it like to watch that guy in actual live speed? We all see what he looks like on television. And 2, how special is it to be able to compete against a once-in-a-generation talent like that?
Just watching him live speed, it's amazing because you're seeing somebody that's 6'6", and I'm 5'11". That somebody that tall usually don't have the same twitch muscles as fast as somebody like myself that's shorter. They're usually going to see them either in the 800 and up, or even at the 400. Just watching it was incredible. And just lining it up with him, it was one of those moments where I could say every race I was a part of history because of what he was doing. I mean, he has not lost a major championship until 17?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The World Championships when Justin Gatlin didn't beat him, and then he wasn't even fully healthy because that early there he wasn't there mentally. He had just lost a childhood friend, and he had did little of any training that season. So still to come out of the World Championship in the top 3, that says something about how talented he is.
Did you ever come close to beating him?
We did in the 4x1, but things didn't fall our way. If we would end up winning, we actually probably would have got DQ. So, like I said, again, everything was for a reason. So I'm fine with my silver medal right now.
Absolutely. And Mookie, again, going back to what you're coaching and these kids listening to you, I'm sure as a coach, it's easy to say to these kids, look, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I got to compete against the best that's ever played this sport, that's ever ran this event. You got to line up with millions of eyes on you and this guy running next to you. So you get to tell your kids that. Is that a story that you share a lot? And do you think their eyes perk up and do they listen a little bit better, when their coach is saying, hey, listen, I got to line it up against the best to ever do it? You might want to hear what I have to say.
Because I actually didn't tell anybody what I did or who I was when I first got out here in Broken Arrow. It wasn't until our third home game and the head track coach was actually doing the commentary for the football game. And before we started warming up, he made the announcement, like everything that I did, all my accolades and stuff. And all of my kids came up to me like, Coach, that's you? You did that? And then so from the 8th graders, all their older brothers, they play varsity football, sisters run track, brothers run track. So it spread throughout that way. And then once my kids know, I think a light bulb literally went up in their head. It's like, okay, we got the coaching staff that actually knows what they're talking about. They're not just out here to earn an extra stipend.
Yeah, and there's this really cool fact about Mookie that I always like to get out there. Mookie was the 79th person in the history of the recorded world to run a sub 10-second 100-meter dash. So, I mean, at one point in Mookie's life, you line him and everybody else up in the world in a foot race, and he's finishing probably top 5. So that's a pretty cool thing to have on your resume, too.
Yes, for sure. I mean, once my kids found that out, they're like, all right, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about.
I want you to take us back, Mookie, to that race against Usain Bolt when you challenged for the gold medal but ended up coming away with the silver.
So it was 2013. It was August. We were out in Moscow, Russia. We were just in the back warming up, and you could just tell how relaxed, and Jamaica just knew they had this win inside the bag. And I could just look at my training partners at the time for that relay, and it was just like, we just got tired of it, and we wanted to make a statement. And I think if our handoff was clean from mine to Justin Gatlin, I literally think we could have challenged that. I mean, I gave us a little of a 2-3 step lead, but I mean, we all know it's Usain Bolt that's on the anchor leg. But I just feel like if Justin Gatlin was able to come out of his 3-point stance clean and not slip and get all out of whack, I think it could have been us at the top of that podium and sitting for silver.
Several times you've made mention of Justin Gatlin. Of course, he was a teammate, but would you consider him as a rival as well? Because that's kind of the uniqueness of the sport of track. I mean, you're all under one flag. In this case, it's the United States of America, but you're also competing against one another. Could you say that Gatlin was a big rival of yours?
Oh, yeah. Justin Gatlin, Mike Rogers, Charles Tillman. I mean, we were all on the same 4x1, but at the end of the day, track is such an individual sport that everybody that you line up against that's in the lane next to you is always going to be a rival, because at the same time, they're trying to feed their families and put food on the table just like you're trying to do. So it's like you have friends and teammates that you're actually training with, but at the same time, they're your rivals, which I think makes the sport great, because at one point in time, those are the friends I did look up to, and having the opportunity to actually race against them make that much sweeter if you did beat them.
Mookie Salaam, who currently is the head sprint coach at Broken Arrow High School, is our guest on episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports. How difficult is it for novice people to understand what it takes to make a living, put food on the table in the sport of professional track?
Ooh, especially if you got a shoe contract, you have to be within the top 25 in the world, not just in the country. You have to be in the top 25 in the world. That way, I mean, you got to do something that's going to separate you from the rest of the sprinters. And by me being number 6 in the world in 2013, I think that was a great attribute that I had. Just not being humble and being able to just work my tail off. It was awesome, because at the end of the day, you can say and walk around and say, well, I'm the fastest guy we're number 6 in the world at that point, and it's hard because, like you said, it's not like you got an NFL team or a basketball team where you're depending on 14 other guys. It's solely you and versus that clock. And if that clock happens to stop faster than anybody else or slower than anybody else, it's going to make it that much sweeter for you if it's faster, or it's going to hurt you if it's not. So it's very difficult.
All great athletes have to face the end. At what point did you know that the end of your racing career was upon you?
Mine, when I started having fun with it, I always told myself when it came to that I was going to hang them up. But it was one meet in particular, which was 2016 at the Olympic trials. I had made it for the 200. I got into the meet with 2042. But for some reason, my body, I couldn't turn over like I used to. I was always able to come up the turn and hit another gear. And I just felt like my shift stick was stuck. I couldn't hit that gear. And I was really, really all out. And I was running 20.99. And I just knew right there and there that it was time for me to hang it up.
And the thing that people don't realize, too, with the track career is, like, Mookie had these opportunities. You get to compete for the Olympics once every 4 years. And if you've got a run of bad injuries and bad luck, kind of like Mookie had, it's just unfortunate. These kids prepare for 4 years. Mookie's at the trials, and the hamstring flares up. I mean, you're turning your body to 100, and it's just sometimes you push it to that limit, and it just kind of – Mookie kind of had some unfortunate breaks, and Mookie, just kind of talk about dealing with that and where your headspace was at with those injuries.
Especially in 2012 when I came in there, I actually had the fastest time in the U.S. In the 100, and I knew I wasn't healthy. I opened up with 998. It was close to my it was close to my PR I ran the year previous. But it was then when I went to Doha, Qatar, and I was running the 200, and I pulled my hamstring out there on the track, on the turn. Like, it was my second race of the season. And I just knew I had to do all I can to try to rush that back. And I knew I was going into the Olympic trials. I wasn't healthy, but it's one of those things that's sprinter. If you're not healthy, those sprint races will expose it. And just trying to be there mentally, I was trying to get myself prepared for that. And it's one of those deals in that sport is that if you're not healthy, like I said, those races will expose it. So I wasn't as confident as I would have been if I was in there healthy and just missed the team. Like, it sucked because I knew I could have beat everybody that lined up that year. I was in my rhythm, and that's one thing about track and field is when that sprinter or that athlete is in the rhythm, they're pretty much unbeatable. And that's what Usain Bolt was doing for many years. He literally had a rhythm that every time he stepped on the track, he knew how to step, how to push and drive, when to come up, when to hit it. And that's one thing. It's injury sucks because it gets you out of that rhythm, and you're not able to find it if you're not racing.
Injuries, like so many other sprinters, mark the end of your career, but at some point I think you had to decide post-racing what you wanted to do. Was coaching at a high school something that you always gave a thought about?
I knew I wanted to go in coaching. Then again, like I said, me and my dad had sat down, and we just talked about what I wanted to do after I left track. And I told him I wanted to finish up school and get my degree and become a coach. And then the end game is I want to be an athletic director. So, I mean, you have to have so many years of coaching and teaching at high school level. So when I got the opportunity to coach at Broken Arrow, which is the biggest school in the state of Oklahoma, it was an opportunity I couldn't turn down.
Were you surprised when you got there that they hadn't had more success in the sport with the large numbers of students that they have in that high school?
Oh yes, for sure. It's one of those deals where, like, I walk the halls every day, and it's like, man, you're 6'2", and you don't play football or basketball. I mean, you just got a lot of regular students there that that want to be in the band or just want to just go to school and don't want to have nothing to do with sports. So I mean, it really did shock me. And so when like I said, all the coaching staff that I coach with, we all did collegiate sports. So we're able to pick people out and tell them, hey, look, this is what we did, this is what we can do if you believe in yourself. And sure enough, we're able to get some guys out there to compete. We had a couple of move-ins, which is always great. And like I said, last year, it wasn't really good. They scored 11 points on the guys' side and then 47 on the girls. And then this year, the girls, we scored 101 runners up, and then the guys, we scored 110 and won the whole thing. So it's a blessing.
So what was the biggest change? What helped them make that type of jump from last year to the state championship season?
Sprinters.
My sprinters, we actually did score 67 points as a whole on the guy side, and then we scored about 55 on the girl. But at the same time, it was one of those where, like I said, it's confidence. I always tell my kids, track and field is one of those sports that's 90% confidence, 10% talent, especially when you get to the state meet, because everybody had to hit a qualifier mark or become top 3 inside the regional to get to state. So with our kids making it there, and that's one thing I try to help them out with as well, is being mentally prepared as well.
And that's the thing with, coaching track, it's kind of hard to see a difference, but you could really see a difference in these kids. Like Mookie said, changing the score from 11 points last year to state champions this year. In track, it's really hard to see. It's easy to see progression as compared to other sports. From your junior to senior year, you'll maybe see more accuracy from a quarterback, more catches from a receiver. But Mookie, talk about your sprinter who increased his 200 time a full 2 seconds under your guidance this year.
Oh, yeah, Caleb Morris. Before I got there, he was running 23:35, and just being able to teach him how to actually stretch the ground and, stay patient in the drive phase and actually run through the line, I actually got him down to 21:55, which that's amazing. That's kind of hard to do for a sprinter, PR in two seconds. Usually you see like a tenth of a second here or a half a second, even if that, but you see 2 whole seconds on it, it light his world up when I actually told him to be patient, that the times will come, to not go out there and chase them and just execute the race and leave every race healthy. And we'll shock yourself at how the season will end, and that happened.
As a coach, is it just the difference between winning and losing in sprint races, technique? Because as you mentioned, everybody can run to get to that stage of their career, but you're talking little tweaks in their technique, lunging towards the finish line. Is that your job as a coach, to improve technique?
To improve technique, get them mentally strong, to be able just to focus on their lane, not worry about the next guy that's next to them. And pretty much, like you said, just to know that whether they lose or win, just to execute. Because track is all about finding the rhythm, like I was saying earlier. And just once you find that rhythm, every other race is going to come to you. You just got to make sure you execute and stay healthy.
Okay, let's go back to high school real quick. You're a football player. You're in track to stay in shape for football. Could you have ever envisioned yourself turning out the way you have with sprint races and professional track and now a coaching career being what would eventually you would become?
No, I would have never thought about that in a million years. It was one of those, like I said, track was solely just to keep me in shape for football. I knew I always wanted to be a professional, if not in football, but if not in the career world, I wanted to at least be a judge or a lawyer. So I knew I was going to be something, a big deal one day, just never knew what it was going to be.
Isn't it funny how your life has worked out? 4 high schools, KP's family gets in touch with you. You live with them. You go from football to track, and now where you've become?
It is funny. My mom always used to tell me, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plan. So one of those deals, I actually look back at it, just everything that I had planned out for my life, it wasn't for me to live my life. It's for me to be able to be this coach that I am today and be able to help these kids, find their potential and break through those barriers and limits that they put on themselves.
All right. Hey, man, we appreciate you. You've got a great story. Thanks so much for coming on. God bless you for having to put up with KP. And hey, let's chat on down the line. Is that okay?
I'm fine with that. Appreciate the call.
All right.
Yeah. One thing before you go, Mookie, I wanted you to tell the listeners real quick about what you've got going on this summer. Just ways, we talked about what a great coach Mookie is and the experience he has. He's wanting to reach out to the youth. So if you're a listener, got somebody that's involved in track and field, if you're just an athlete trying to improve your sprinting and your speed, if you're an athlete, you can never come short on that. So Mookie, tell a little bit about what you got going on this summer and how we can people can reach out to you, get a hold of you for this kind of stuff.
Okay. Pretty much what I'm doing this summer is helping out with athletes around the Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Wasso area with their speed and agility. I actually had a kid that I work with. He's about to be a sophomore here at Wasso. He plays wide receiver. I worked on him with his 40 time. He was running 5 flats, but got him down to a 4.6 already. So pretty much just, doing what I do on the track, just helping them tweak the way they run and being able to push off the ground. So you guys can always add me on Instagram. It's going to be Mookie Salaam _. And then Facebook, it'll be Mookie Salaam.
All right. Again, we appreciate it. Hey, I think you're a darn good coach, but I'm gonna put a challenge to you, okay?
Okay.
KP, Casady, myself, and we're going to go find one other friend. We want to start entering in 4x100 competitions. Can you come help us? Hey, what are you laughing at? You don't know I might be a world-class sprinter that's talent's untapped. Will you come help us improve our technique this year?
Yes, I can do that. Y'all tell me when and where, and I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, this canvas there's a lot to work with on this canvas. So you can make my 40-second 100-meter dash turn to 30 seconds before you know it.
I'm going to cut you some slack there, bud. You're laughing because you know Kelby. You haven't seen Casady. I mean, we are cut specimens athletically, let me tell you.
And to our listeners, too, something else we barely touched on today, another interesting little factoid about Mookie. I always tell people, remember the last name Salaam, because Mookie's got some good genes coming whenever him and his wife decide to settle down and have a family. Mookie's wife is also a national champion sprinter for South Carolina, Mookie. Am I correct?
Yes, she's a two-time NCAA champion in the 60, and then her PR is 7:02 in the 60, and then she's ran 11:02 in the 100. So got some quick genes coming in.
Yeah, got to shout out the former Lakia Brookins, now Lakia Salaam.
Okay, but you know what? You're still related to KP, so you do get some deductions for that. Hey, thanks, bud. Come back and see us again, would you?
I will. Thank you, guys.
Mookie Salaam, our guest on episode 22 of VIBELAND Sports. We're back to wrap it up right after this. Wow, what a great story. What a great guy. And KP, I give you a lot of grief, man, and I gave you some of that segment, but congratulations. Man, that must be special to be able to call somebody like that a family member.
Yeah, I'm just so proud of Mookie and his journey and where he's gone. And just, if you, you got to hear a little bit of, his backstory, just to see him succeed and continue to do that now, kind of giving back, and I think doing what he was really called for, helping these kids out and already making a huge impression in the community where he's at.
Again, as KP alluded to, he is going to be offering speed and agility drills this summer to young kids. He would love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram, Mookie Salaam _ or on Facebook, Mookie Salaam. Again, Salaam is Salaam. I'd like to have him back on sometime.
We got a pretty good connection with him, so I think I can get my brother on. He's a busy
great.
guy, but I think he's pretty easy to get a hold of. When you call your brother, he answers. So.
Okay, I'll tell you
yeah.
what. I've got to give it up to KP. I don't give him much dues on this show, much props. He's by far and away got the coolest family member of any of us.
I'd have to agree.
Yeah,
Sorry, Peyton.
Yeah. Sorry to my family too, but you're not Mookie Salaam. So, all right. Last week's VIBELAND fan poll question of the week: should the Dallas Cowboys? What should they do with Dak Prescott? Is it A, an extension with lesser AAV? Is it B, re-signed for $30+ million per year? Or C, let him test free agency? 43% of you that voted said extend him with a lesser AAV. I'm with that. B, re-sign him for $30 million per year, just 19%. And let him test free agency. Surprisingly enough, pretty high. 38% said, hey, if he wants to go, go.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. If you're not able to sign him for less money on the books, then I think you got to let him go and see what he's going to get in free agency. And look, maybe that drives his value down and he still re-signs with the Cowboys just for even lower than what Jerry Jones is going to sign that check for. So I'm all for letting him test free agency if it comes down to it.
Remember, Ezekiel's due for a raise here shortly,
Yep.
and Amari Cooper now is at a stalemate with the Cowboys on an extension. So who knows how this is all going to shake out. But those are the results. Thank you so much for logging on to @VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and taking part in our VIBELAND fan poll question of the week. Again, our new one this week is: who is the most important player to their team in the Eastern Conference Finals? Is it A, Giannis, or B, Kawhi? @VIBELAND Sports, and take part in our fan poll question of the week. Casady, we need to tell our listeners, coming up in about a month, it's going to be the following week after the U.S. Open golf tournament, we're going to give everybody a break. We don't need a break, but our listeners need a break. And you're the boss. You say we're going to go on hiatus.
That's right. We're going to go on a hiatus through the summer. We'll be back in August. And
But you still have us for a few more weeks.
That's right. But just there won't be any VIBELAND Sports episodes dropping in July. We might possibly have some bonus content for you. We're still TBD on that. But we are going to take a break from our regularly scheduled weekly podcast here, especially in the heat of the summer where there's really not just a ton happening in the middle of the summer either. So it's a slow sports time. So we're trying to figure out when we're going to break this thing, and it's kind of just fit in perfectly. So we will be back, though, in time for football season, get everybody ready for that, as well as baseball wrapping up in August and everything. But you can still reach out to us on social media. We're going to be active on there, and we'll be making sure that everyone knows when we are going to return. Just stay tuned on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it.
Bro, you and I have a date next weekend.
That's right.
Big golf tournament. I'm not certain we don't need to take the following Monday off to recuperate from that one.
It's
going to be a good time. Toby Keith's golf tournament in Orlando.
Love it.
All right, KP, you got anything else?
Nope. I'm going to miss you guys this summer, but I mean, I was just thinking about it. It's NBA free agency. There's going to be something that I promise you our phones are going to be going off and we're going to be sending the bat signals. It's time to get in the studio.
You
we got to
can't
talk
come
about
over and
this.
just hang out.
Well, yeah, that's true.
We don't have to have a microphone
That's
to
true.
be together.
That's obviously true. Yeah, no content, just hanging out.
Right.
I'm cool with that too.
All right, that's a wrap on episode 22. Again, a big thank you to Mookie Salaam for visiting with us on episode 22. For Casady and Kelby, I'm Todd. We'll see you again next week for another edition of VIBELAND Sports, a presentation of VIBELAND Media.